Welcome to the 3D Cut Freak channel. This is an update video on my 3D printed radio control model called the Piranha, which you can download at 3D Lab Print. It has been roughly half a year since the release of the model, and now it's time for some improvements. The first improvement I would like to show you is on the wing. I always found it very difficult to land the plane with the retracts. It is a nice feature. I still like the look of it, but it would be so much easier to land the plane just on its belly, on grass, for example. Of course, you always have the option to leave the retracts inside the wing when you are landing, but then the question is, why do you even have them in the first place? Well, you could argue that for a start on a asphalt road, it would be nice to have some wheels, but then the rudder is missing, and I always wanted to add the rudder to the Piranha, but it would add more weight to the rear section of the plane behind the center of gravity, and it's already quite difficult to achieve the correct center of gravity. You need a lot of weight in the front. The nose should have been longer, but I wanted to keep it original. So I decided not to go for the rudder, but instead reduce the weight and get rid of the retracts altogether. Of course, this is optional. You will still, when you buy the Piranha or when you download the files, you will still find both wing parts, as you can see here now on the left side with the retracts, and on the right side of the screen without the retracts. Both of these files are included. Now, if you don't have any retracts and you don't have any wheels, that means you would have to start the plane from your hand and land it on its belly. And when you land the plane like this on its belly, it's always a problem when you have your servo, your aileron control horns and your servo horns sticking out at the bottom, so they catch something that's lying on the ground and you rip them off. And that's why I also included these servo horn and control horn covers, which can be glued onto the bottom of the wing optionally. These are the two changes of the wing. All the other changes you will see on the fuselage. Another problem when landing the Piranha was that the fuselage, especially in this area, was very weak due to the canopy. The canopy, of course, makes it easy to change the battery and quick to change the battery, but then reprinting the whole fuselage, or at least a section of this, takes even longer than replacing a battery. So I decided, if you want to go this way, you will have way more rigidity and stiffness of the fuselage if there is no removable canopy. And this is what you can see right here. You would basically have to reprint two sections of the fuselage. We're talking about the sections B and C, which are now fully closed and have no removable canopy. What you can see here on these three sections, there's a little bit in the front, in section A, is just a small rip, so you know where to paint your canopy, so it at least looks like the plane has a canopy. Oh, and by the way, this shape now, with this little rip, is way closer to the original look of the size and shape of the canopy of the original Piranha, which, by the way, also didn't really have a removable canopy. The next big problem was the electric motor getting very hot inside the fuselage. I did not make any cooling openings because I wanted to keep the original look. The problem was that the motor got so hot after only a few minutes of flight that it melted the front section of the fuselage A part, and the motor just got loose. So I decided to take a step away from the original fuselage shape and create some cooling openings for the electric motor. I tested this on a very hot day, flying very long with full throttle and not letting it cool down, landed and immediately checked the temperature, and the temperature was only a few degrees higher than what I started with. I started with 26 degrees, and when I measured it was roughly around 30 degrees centigrade. So that means for me these cooling openings really worked very well. What I did, of course, is add a big hole at the tail part of the fuselage so the air can come out. Of course, if you make some openings where the air should go in and it cannot go out, then that's not really working. As a second option, I made, if just in case you want to run a very, very hot setup, and your motor still gets too warm for PLA and also for you, annealing is not an option. I tried it and didn't really work for me. Then I created another optional fuselage part A, which has a big cutout in the front and not the firewall included. Instead, you get DXF and step files and everything you need for milled carbon fiber or glass fiber firewall for your fuselage A. Now, all your cooling problems are definitely sorted because the carbon fiber can take the temperature with no problem, and it will. All these ribs are here good enough to cool down the carbon fiber part even on a very hot motor, and you will not have any problems on the 3D printed PLA parts. Let's talk about the other modifications on the fuselage. At the tail you can see I cut off a piece of the rear small skid. It now fits a little bit better when you land on its belly. And what was really necessary is stiffening up the mounting for the horizontal stabilizer. Basically, we're talking about some ribs on the inside here in the last section of the fuselage. That's section E. These ribs did exist in the first version as well, but now I increased their size and I really made them exactly to the same shape as all the mountings, and this made a huge difference. I also tried to insert the 1.5 millimeter carbon fiber rod inside here, and it of course works, but it's not really necessary. I will keep the hole inside the fuselage so you can do the same, but you really don't have to do that. It works even without it. All the ribs here at the tail section are good enough to stiffen up the horizontal stabilizer. Actually, I never had a stabilizer break in flight, but it felt a little flimsy, to be honest. And last but not least, by landing on its belly, when I tried it, of course you might damage something at the bottom of the fuselage. The optional Vibra engine is really not an option anymore because it would stop your sliding and landing and it would break off. But in order to achieve a little bit of a slide, maybe when you land, and maybe even when you land on asphalt, you cannot land on grass, I made this skid, as I call it. You can see this skid here in Fusion 360 is a full part, and that's because I printed it from TPU with I printed it with 3 perimeters and few percent of infill, only 5 or so percent of infill. It makes it very, very soft and really not that heavy. It can be, the TPU skid can be glued onto the bottom of the fuselage, and it acts really, really good as a skid. It doesn't look too bad in the air. It doesn't add too much weight, and it's perfect for landing on its belly. My main goal with all these modifications was that you have a plane that's easier to land, that's slower to land because it's lighter, and that you have no damage in case the landing isn't perfect. So here's an uncut video of a few flights I had today with my Piranha, with almost all of these updates, almost because I did not have the carbon fiber firewall mounted. It's still a fully PLA part, but the cooling is good enough on 3S at least to have a cool motor and no problem with the PLA motor mount. If you have already bought the Piranha, thank you very much. And of course, all these updates are free for you. For all the others, you might want to take a look at 3D Lab Print, and you will find the Piranha at the 3D Lab Gang page. Of course, the price of the Piranha did not change. You will get all the original files, including all the second version files, when you buy it. Thank you very much, and please subscribe.
Achtung jetzt! Wie viele?
3.
Messen wir kurz Temperatur. Ist noch immer genauso kalt wie am Anfang. Nicht 1 Grad wärmer war. Waren das nicht schon 4? Ich glaube, es waren 4 Landungen schon. Das war knapp. Hast du gemerkt, ne? Ich glaube, es waren 5. Was haben wir? Ja, genau. Probieren eine schöne Landung.